All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I'm your host, Damon Pistolka, and with me today, I've got Sam Gupta from ElevatIQ. Sam, awesome to see you today. So
Hey,
happy we can have you.
Damon, thanks for having me. So happy to be here.
Yes. Well, it's going to be an interesting day. We're going to have some fun. We're going to talk a bit about some ERP solving challenges with ERP implementations and in manufacturing. And I'm butchering the title. I know I am. Solving manufacturing ERP system and implementation challenges. There we go. I got it out finally. It was too long for me.
You
It's
got
more
it.
than 3 words in the afternoon. So, but it's
As
good
long
to
as
have.
the problem is being solved, I think we are going to be okay.
Yeah, we will be. We will be. And that's the main thing is we want to try to give people a bit about your background and history. So, like our show starts out, Sam, tell us a bit about yourself and kind of your journey and how you roll into what you've been doing and kind of how it led to today.
Yeah. So when I started, I grew up in a very manufacturing and distribution centric family. So we did not really differentiate between business and family time, to be honest. Okay.
Okay.
In our family, everybody works as soon as they are
Yeah.
on their feet. And I think you have similar background, Damon, right?
Yep.
If I remember correctly. Yeah. So that's how my really the childhood, that's how I grew up. So spent a lot of time learning about business, manufacturing, distribution. Did a lot of accounting as part of my family business. So by the time I went to university, I just knew too much information in my head, which is good and bad, I guess. So when I went to college, as you know, I did engineering, which could be dry for a person who did business, for
Yeah.
living. Before your university. So yeah, but I was really curious about the engineering aspect of the problem, just because I wanted to understand how world worked, and I didn't want to be limited with just my background. That okay, I knew about manufacturing, I knew about distribution, but I didn't know how the other world worked. So that's why I actually went for engineering. I really wanted to master that, but then I never wanted to sort of go for engineering. So I was always into business. I would probably not fit in the engineering environment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I decided to work on some of the entrepreneurial ventures as part of my university, try to sell to restaurants, library, a very small, tiny, weeny ERP system back in the days, like 20, 25 years back.
Yeah.
Trust me, I could not feed my family doing that. So then we decided, you know what, this is not worth it because, again, for me, it was not just the passion, because I knew how to do the cash flow analysis for a business
Yeah.
and what works in a business.
Yeah.
So I wanted some sort of predictable cash flow so that I can, raise my children. I can have
Yeah.
family, I can have employees, but I just could not see myself doing that. I thought, you know what, I have a lot of business background, but I have a lot of learning to do. So that's why I decided to go for Fortune 500 consulting. They liked me because I had a very different background compared to
Yeah.
other folks who were, very bookish. And in my case, I had a very practical knowledge of the field. Then I had the engineering perspective. So when I went for the consulting, they would put me in every single engagement that was broken. Okay.
Yeah.
And when I say
Yeah.
broken would mean a lot of different things. Here in this particular case, when you talk about technology, obviously technology can do a lot of things. It can do miracle for you, but it can also fire back, Tim. And as you know,
Yeah.
dealing with a lot of different technology engagement. So my role was really to, number one, the basic problem in all of these engagement was, everybody is very siloed. Everybody's thinking, okay, I'm marketing, I'm engineering, I'm accounting. Everybody's sort of trying
Yep.
to pull everything in their direction. And because of that, the overall picture of the organization wasn't as clear. Okay, and because of that, you will have a lot of investment, let's say in the marketing department, a lot of duplicated effort. It was a nightmare. And I was
So
the yeah, go ahead.
So when you were doing that, was that part of business overall, or was it part of ERP and ERP systems focused?
So the consulting company that I used to work for, they were sort of the SIs, the system integrator.
Okay.
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 So typically their engagements are going to be very technically driven.
All right.
But
Yeah.
typically they are going to be bridging the gap with the business as well. So since business cannot learn the technology overnight, so it is the technical people who have to learn the business and figure this out. So for us, it was always, okay, if you don't understand the business, then probably you are not right for the job. And that is probably the reason why they liked my background when I got into this field, is because I had that business attitude. So initially when they hired me, I did a little bit of programming as well. I did that for some time, but then I was put into a really large engagements in broken deals, doing a little bit of pre-sales and then professional services. That is how typically the consulting organization works. Worked in a lot of different environment, you name it, logistics, transportation, distribution, manufacturing, airline, banking. Oh my goodness, all over the place. Okay. So did that for roughly 10, 12 years. I got really good at business. They moved me from engagement to engagement, just fixing these engagements, right? And then after roughly 12ish years, when I was done, I was always exploring some of the entrepreneurial ventures in parallel. I just could not see myself doing this sort of starting ERP company, because how competitive they could be, especially when you are targeting the larger companies. It's just harder to build a company around that. So then I wanted to explore some of the tiny mini startup ideas, the way majority of these startups were. It could be the MedTech, the MarTech, the Rep. So I went after pretty much every single ideas you can possibly imagine in the startup space. Failed miserably, okay, in every single of them. Just because I just didn't understand the market, I just didn't understand the industry. I was like, this is so cool. I want to go after this. I can do it like any other entrepreneur, right? But then slowly and gradually, once I failed enough, I guess, then I realized, what, my core is really that manufacturing, distribution, ERP. And, in this journey, I figured out, how to do sales and marketing, because before that, I was involved in larger deals, but I just didn't know how to approach the sales and marketing from the scratch. So this whole startup journey actually gave me the perspective, okay, how to penetrate the SMB market. So that's how I, started the ElevatIQ umbrella. The core focus of ElevatIQ, as you know, is so it's slightly bigger than ERP. Obviously, we are very ERP focused just because of the industry, we are targeting here. So we do a lot of different things, from the ERP selection to the contract help if the companies need. We do a lot of integration. Let's say if your CRM is not connected to ERP is not connected to e-commerce, all of those crazy scenarios, whatever business apps you might have in your environment, whether you are a manufacturer, distributor, retailer, or anybody else, right? We also get involved in a lot of upgrade or optimization. Majority of the time, when we get into any engagement, typically we are noticing that the adoption rate is going to be 20 to 25% of the system. There is going to be a massive duplication between the systems. And because of that, there is going to be a significant effort overall from the admin perspective. If you look at P&L, that actually increases your SG&A. Okay. And if you keep growing your SG&A, and if your revenue is not growing with the same pace, Damon, what is going to happen, especially when you are going to sell this business. I don't think anybody is going to buy it. And one of the comment that I think, I hosted a couple of folks on my podcast as well from the buy side, and they say that, in these companies, and I can completely relate, we put $0 on the technology. Okay, any of the business process technology, because they know that it's not going to be any useful when I'm going to buy it. So typically that's the situation of the typical SMB market. So we work with a lot of different PE companies. Let's say if they have a vision to improvise their positioning in the market, Damon, obviously, I would be more than happy to work with you as well, because you do similar things in the market too, right? So our goal is to how can we provide far better value from the technology, and how can we streamline the business processes so you grow the way you should be growing, and your admin effort and these duplicate processes don't become your bottleneck for growth.
Yeah, and that's good stuff. So I'm going to stop just for a second. We got Paul Van Meters here today saying, looking forward to discussion. Thanks, Paul. I always forget too, if you're listening, just go ahead and tell us where you're listening from. It's always cool to see that. We'll make sure that everyone knows. And we got some of our listeners we hit they're often listen. Hopefully we see some of you back too, but let us know if you got questions as well in the comments. We're watching those. Both I'm hitting it on LinkedIn over here. We're hitting it through the other channels we're going through as well. Now, you have hit a lot of different things here, Sam. That's the one thing that I think that I don't know if people know quite how much stuff you just hit, because I was writing as you were talking, and there were a lot of things. Now, one of the things that I see, I personally, and the last one was a long time ago. I'll just say it's been a long time, but I've been through 8 or 9, something like that, major upgrades or implementations, right? So these things are never pretty, it seems like, unless you really plan them out and you really get it done right. I mean, I've come into where people have been trying to do it for 2+ years and still doing training because they haven't got past the training phase, because they can't get the training done in time before employees leave, and can't, so an ERP can be a massive sink and suck of resources and money. And on the other hand of that, so your selection, your implementation is so key.
Yeah.
And then you bring up something that I know has got to be killing ERP systems and duplicate systems now, and that is the integration, because every company now needs to have a CRM.
Yeah.
Every company has, not every company, but many companies are doing business in an ERP type, or not an ERP, but an e-commerce type system where, they want their customers to either be able to buy retail online, or they want to be able to, customers, if they're B2B, they might have them logging in online and doing their own. They want their suppliers to be connected to their suppliers now, or even into their customers to monitor inventory from their customer systems to automatically place purchase orders. I had one of the people I worked with a few years ago has mentioned that they get like 1 million orders a year from one of their customers, because they're high volume orders on a daily basis. And so these integration, I have to imagine, have exploded. And then when you talk about one of the last things you talked about, and we're going to cover each one of these, we're going to go back and cover each one, is the upgrade. The upgrade process is no simple task. So when you're setting out and you're helping people in the selection process, what are some of the key things that you think people overlook that if they just paid more attention to, that it would help them a lot?
So one of the problems that we typically notice, especially if somebody is buying the technology for the first time, for them, technology is just a product, as if they are walking to a Home Depot and they are simply grabbing that. Okay, it might be slightly more complicated than that, but typically they are not thinking that they are buying an IT system. And if, Damon, and you have been around the block for a very long time, if you had to buy this IT system back in, let's say, 1990 or 2000, oh my goodness, your IT guy is going to give this large form, and there are going to be at least 1,000 different checkpoints that you have to make, and each decision is going to have some sort of implications on your IT system.
Definitely.
Sure, in 2020, I get it that things are slightly easier. You can get the subscription. You can do a lot of things easier. An average SMB company can utilize this information to be able to purchase. But the implications, the system, the IT hasn't changed. It's still the same. It's still very complex. It's not supposed to be easy. Okay. So one of the things that you can do to go easy on yourself is just to embrace that it is probably going to be difficult. So number one, spend some time in researching yourself. Figure out, how to work with the consultant, because if you don't know how to work with a consultant, they sort of become this compliance culture, is what my friends like to define the term. So they become very compliant to you, because at the end of the day, Damon, let's say if I'm working as a consultant, if I'm working with the manufacturer, and if manufacturer does not really have enough understanding of the IT system, and if I'm going to challenge on a couple of things, and after that, what they are going to say, I'm not really getting a good vibe, then I'm going to back off, and I'm going to simply listen to whatever they are saying. So sometimes what these vendors do is they become very compliant. And when you become compliant, that's a challenge. That's a problem, especially in case of IT system, because there are actually real implications overall that a lot of small to medium-sized businesses don't realize. So number one thing, just embrace the selection process. There are a lot of things that you need to think through before you select an ERP system. Even if you are, let's say, building a website, right? As you correctly pointed out, there are going to be at least 10 to 15 different channels that you need to consider. And the more customer you sign, the more channels you are going to get. If you are signing larger customers, they are probably going to be on one of the vendor system or the punch out system. If you are dealing with Amazon, as you know, Amazon has 2 or 3 different completely different fulfillment cycles. I mean, from the business perspective, they are completely different. That has your implications on the ERP system, the fulfillment system. So if you are, let's say, if you are not thinking about integrating all of these pieces, if you're not thinking about the holistic picture when you are purchasing a system, and if you're thinking that, it's going to be a very small piece of software, then, that is definitely going to fire back. And that's what we see in most cases, just because, especially when people are buying the ERP system for the first time, we have seen the failure rate to be roughly 70 to 80%. So there is a saying that in case of ERP, I think the failure rate is going to be roughly 50% in general. Okay. If somebody is buying for the first time, and that's given just because they don't understand what they are getting into, it's just hard. So the failure rate is going to be much higher for people who are buying for the next time they implement. They are going to be way nicer because now they know that I'm probably building a house. So I need to be nice to my contractor. I'm building my airport. I need to be nice to my contractor there. So overall understanding of the process is one thing that we typically notice in the selection process that people don't understand. But there are so many different variables, so we can dig deeper into each of those.
But talking about selection, I think, and I would show Paul's coming to us from Bellingham. I know that's a beautiful place up there, so I wanted to get that in quick. But on the selection process, I think one thing that honestly people don't understand when they're going to look at any kind of system like this, I don't care if it's a CRM or an ERP system, is that they don't know their own business processes.
Exactly.
They don't have them written down. They've got Damon's been doing the order entry or whatever the heck he's been doing. And it's, that's just what it is. And we don't have it written down to train somebody else. And when you don't have that, it really, how do you actually select a system that's going to help you do that if you don't know how you do it that much? And then it becomes a lot of personal opinion. But and that's great that you say that, because it's what I've found, and it drives a lot of extra cost, and we'll get to that later. So great stuff on the selection. And Paul said too that failure rate as high as 60%, and it's not good, man. It is brutal. It is brutal to implement a new ERP system, that's for sure. And that's why I think people live with really crappy ones for a lot longer than they should as well. Just because they're scared of it. And I know people like you can help them do that. And technology is probably included a lot. So when you talk about implementation, what are some of the things that you see on the implementation phase that really run people ragged or run into problems with?
So it's a chain, right? So when you talk about the selection, if you don't actually do the job during the selection process, you actually hit on the right point. So before you install any sort of e-commerce system or any sort of ERP system or CRM, it doesn't matter which system you are installing. There is a process in which you have to go through your business simplification phase. Okay, and it's almost like defining your blueprint, defining your architecture. When you are building a house, irrespective of whether you are building a house or airport or a city. Okay, you would not do that in the plain engineering term before you have the architecture refined on a piece of paper, unless you have roles and responsibilities defined of different systems. In case of IT systems, typically majority of these small to medium-sized businesses, they just bypass that process. And the point that you were trying to bring, Damon, is, hey, I have been doing my business this way. Can you simply enable this in the next system? If you do that, obviously that's not going to work. Number one, that increases the cost of the implementation. Number two, if you don't know what you are asking your technical guy to do, they are very good at engineering. They are very good at creating stuff, right? They just like to solve the problems. They are going to solve the problem, but that is going to cost you a lot of money. These guys don't understand dollars. They as soon as you talk about dollars, they are going to run away. I'm telling you.
Yes, that's a good point, because it is really not what you can do, but what you should do, and you should know what you should do before that. And you talked about the business blueprint. I think that's really key. Not to try to before you do the selection, really, you should have your business blueprint, but then it will save you a lot of money and other resources on the implementation phase for sure. That's great. So now when we're looking at the business blueprint, when you're talking about the integration, Now that's the thing that you've got to run into a lot, where they've got a separate CRM system, or they've got, like I said, a website where people are placing orders, or they've got an EDI to different customers or suppliers. So what do you see the challenges that people run into when they're having problems with the integration?
So typically when they evaluate any system, they are going to ask a very simple question, and that's almost like a checklist. Okay. So they are going to say, okay, I'm buying my CRM system. Hey, as part of my evaluation list, what I have compiled is, can it integrate with the ERP system? And my vendor is going to say, yes, absolutely. Okay. And when you say integrate, it could mean a lot of different things. It's not supposed to be this binary answer. Okay, integration is almost like your development project, to be honest. You need to understand both sides of the interfaces. You need to be able to translate that. You need to be able to map. You need to be able to test. So it's almost like you are actually writing an ERP system. So integration is not supposed to be easy. That is not supposed to be taken lightly by any means. So this is something when people are buying, let's say they are thinking about integration. Oh, yeah, they can integrate. Don't worry about it. I've already asked that question. We are covered. Let's move on.
Yeah.
And my CRM is installed. Now, once you install the CRM, my salespeople are not going to be able to see my inventory. Okay, hey, my order is here and I have no idea what I'm selling. I have no idea whether it is, in my warehouse or not. Then you are going to, your pricing is not going to be integrated. Your customer data is not going to be integrated. And by the way, I mean, see, even if you, let's say you find a tool and they might claim that they are integrated, they might, let's say, do one data field or a couple of data fields. And they might say that, you know what, I'm fully integrated. You can do whatever you want here, but you need to be able to sort of see the demo. Okay, how deeply integrated it is with any system. Doesn't matter whether you are talking about integration of, e-commerce to ERP. And typically, if you are creating your own integration, that's where we see majority of the problems. The reason why we see majority of the problems in case of integration, typically when anybody is doing the integration, they are going to have this one expertise. Let's say if you are asking your e-commerce guy to do the integration, what they are going to do, their perspective is going to be very e-commerce. They don't understand what is happening in the world of accounting. They don't understand what is happening in the world of procurement. They don't understand what is happening in the world of engineering and how their decisions are going to impact the other department. So they don't necessarily have that business architecture is what I like to call. A customer is a customer for the entire organization. In your case, you might have the e-commerce customer, CRM customer, ERP customer, and these customers are completely independent. They have no idea what.
Yes.
So
that's for sure. That's for sure. And you make a good point. Is you said one thing here. I think that is a key question is how deeply can you integrate, and how, and then back again to the blueprint is how much do you need to integrate? You should understand that in your blueprint. And until you go through, and this is kind of a side note, until you go through, even when someone says, yeah, we can do EDI or we can do API interface and we do it all the time, that doesn't mean it's something like you just plug a light, a power cord into the wall. It's like there's a lot of work to get them to talk. You said the mapping, the translating, the testing. There's a ton of work that it takes to just see. Even if they say they'll go API to API, will they transmit the right data? Will they transmit it on the frequency you need to? Or do you have enough custom fields to make sure you can get all the data transferred from one side to the other? Because one might have not the fields you can. So then you got to look at custom fields. Well, I can't, if I don't have enough of them, can I even, there's just that one little thing. So your question here is so relevant for people. How deeply can you integrate with your critical systems or customers or suppliers, and just make sure that that's answered better? And again, and back to the business blueprint, I think if they know how deeply they need to integrate at those interfaces, it's something you could help them with, or something they need to detail out themselves really to a really finite level to be able to do it. So awesome stuff, man. Awesome stuff on that. So now, what should seem simple is, what are some of the things when you upgrade a system that people run into? Because I mean, you'd think, like we think of upgrading software, you just think plug it in and go. But in the systems, I mean, what are some of the challenges that people are unexpected? Because I gotta almost envision myself in a business here, and I've got an IT person, and our ERP system needs to be upgraded. So they're going to do it over a weekend, and we're just like everybody. Yep, they've talked to the customer, the software supplier, the ERP supplier, and they say, yep, this is the way you knew. They've worked it all out. They're going to do it on Saturday or Sunday, and we're going to come back in on Monday, and we come back in on Monday, and we have that little notes on the computers or emails out to the whole company that says, sorry, but you can't log in today. Or until we fix it. So what are the kind of things that you run into that people need to consider that will help them to prevent that?
Well, so number one, figure out how not to upgrade, because upgrade is hard in general. And let me give you some numbers here. Numbers here. When you talk about upgrade, number one, you have to talk about what you are upgrading. So each module, each component that you have in the software could be completely different. They could have different upgrade cycle, and those upgrade cycle need to align. It's almost like, let me give you some more numbers here, right? Then you will probably understand. So a typical sales order screen, okay, on the e-commerce system, or let's talk about ERP system, because they are slightly more complex. They have a lot more business rules than a comparable e-commerce system, right? So a sales order typically on the ERP system, if you're talking about decent size ERP system, they typically touch 200 different tables. Okay. 200 different tables. Okay. And a smaller ERP system, they are probably going to have 200 tables in total. Here we are talking about one screen. Okay. And each of those tables could have roughly, let's say, 200 different fields in each of those tables. So now we are talking about how many, like 40,000 attributes, right? And let's say if they have 40,000 lines of code, okay? And let's say if you make one change in line, okay? And if you have to merge, the way upgrade works is you have to look at both of the lines, okay, what was changed, and then you have to go through the upgrade cycle. That's why it is so difficult. So anytime you make any changes in the code, in any software, that has to go through that merge process. So if you are upgrading something, number one question that you have to ask, okay, why are you upgrading? Why can you not auto upgrade this? And typically when you are going to rely on the out of the box functionality from your OEM, then what is going to happen is they are going to take care of all of this pain for you, okay, in the background. But if you are adventurous, and then what you are going to do is you are going to over customize your ERP system or CRM system, then the fun, you are going to have that fun as opposed to your software provider having that fun, because now you have your customization, you have written your code, you are thinking that it's just easy, but then you have to consume that code that is actually coming from the other side, right? So the upgrade process is extremely complex. The more, see, if you are a manufacturer, distributor, retailer, guys, you are business people. Okay, your company is not defined by the IT or business systems. Don't worry about that. Give it to somebody else who is really good at that, right? They have the processes set up, they have the capacity set up. So the more you transfer this responsibility to them, the less you customize, the more you simplify your business, the easier life you are going to have to be able to do the business. Figure out how you can be creative inside the system. You can have all those crazy business rules inside the system itself. If you figured, okay, my system is the benchmark, and I'm actually starting from my business, what can I do in this system from the business perspective? Ask your consultant, they'll be super creative. That's the real use of their creativity, then customizing something that is going to cause a lot of pain and expenses, admin effort, and that's going to be super bottleneck to your growth.
Yeah, you are right. And I've seen those applications where people have taken the systems and customized them to the point to where you can't upgrade. You just can't, because they've made, like you said, a tremendous amount of change to get something that they thought was critical at the point, and now they don't realize that that lives with them forever. Paul made a comment here real quick. He said, cloud ERP will solve that. It will definitely solve some of it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But if it's cloud based and you can't modify it, that's what you're talking about, is if you keep it the original,
Yeah.
and the original works for you, you're much better off, which I agree wholeheartedly, because there are some of these systems have, obviously, as you know, there's companies that are set up just to customize the systems, and they do a really good job of customizing the systems, which is nice in some cases if that's what you need, but in other cases where you don't need it, it's just added expense. And I've seen not that big of companies spend multi-million-dollar budgets on their ERP system implementation. When you go, it's just overkill, because they can do something and they do something, and the customization and then what you live with after is really a killer for them. So that's great. I like that statement. Figure out how not to upgrade. that's good. Yeah. Why, we're talking about upgrades. Yeah. Figure out how not to upgrade. That's good. Or like you said, if the system is the system and it's not been customized, well, then you don't have nearly as much risk. Or if you're running a cloud ERP, like Paul says, I think you're a lot better off. Now, there was something else that we had talked about, and I want to get into this briefly too, because I think it's really important when we talk about business architecture and enterprise architecture.
Yep.
So can you explain them first of all a little bit, and then we'll talk about it just a minute.
So enterprise architecture is slightly more technical term that I don't know if business people should be worried about. Okay, let's talk about the business architecture first. So it doesn't matter. I like to take out the tool from the argument, or the ERP or CRM e-commerce. It doesn't matter what you are doing. Okay, from the business perspective, you have your business objects. Okay, those business objects sort of stay in your business architecture. Your customer is a customer. Your vendor is a vendor. Your price is a price. Now, if you have price living in three different places inside your business architecture, your architecture is not going to be very aligned. Let's take an example of your organization. For example, in your organization, you have your marketing guy, you have your sales guy, you have your HR guy, you have your accounting guy. And typically, when you set up a company, you are going to define the roles and responsibility of each of those so that they don't end up stepping on each other. This is how your business architecture works. In case of business architecture, you are going to have key component of your business architecture, which is going to be your stakeholders. The main stakeholders are going to be, let's say, your customers, vendors, your items, your price list, how your BOMs are going to be. Those are your key components. Now, how that is going to go through your business process, that's a process. So once you actually align and refine your business architecture, figure out how you can streamline that. For example, let's take an example of how you are going to define your payment terms. Now, payment term, irrespective of whether you accept the payment in your e-commerce system or ERP system or CRM system, it is one payment term. So from the business architecture perspective, you should outline this. Okay, irrespective of the system, I'm going to have, these are the components that I'm going to have as part of my business architecture. Now, if my tool needs, you need to go to the business architecture guy. Okay, hey, business architecture guy, okay, if I have a specific functionality, should this reside inside my e-commerce? Should this reside inside my CRM? Should this reside inside ERP? And each of these tools are amazing. They are designed for a purpose. Now, if you don't understand what each of these tools are supposed to do, then it's a problem. Then you sort of overstep, right? But if you define the clear boundary, the way your blueprint is designed on a piece of paper, e-commerce is supposed to be doing e-commerce. It's not supposed to be doing the job of the ERP guy. ERP is supposed to be doing the ERP. It's not supposed to be doing the other thing. So what business architecture does is, it's almost like a blueprint of these different systems and components, and then it actually defines the interaction, the relationship between those systems at a very high level. Okay, these are the data elements that they should be exchanging. Should it be back and forth? How that is going to be defined, right? And then enterprise architecture is going to be slightly more technical concept that you have, which is going to be, how these components are going to be laid out in overall technical architecture, how these components are going to be designed. That is enterprise architecture. But business architecture is without any technology, without any tools. It's really business, logic that you have in your business that needs to be streamlined before you introduce a tool in your architecture.
Yeah, I see. So the business architecture is really kind of a simple overview of the systems that you're going to use, that you need to integrate, obviously, with amongst themselves in that, but and you're defining the data that needs to flow between them at the appropriate level. And really the enterprise architecture are the different things that you're going to use whether it's software, whether it's hardware, to move the data back and forth and make them talk. Am I kind of that?
Exactly. Close.
Okay.
Let me give you one
Close.
more example.
Yeah,
Probably
good.
it will make it easier, right? So,
Good.
let's say if I'm building the house and if I hire the architect's job is really to draw the house on a piece of paper. They
Yep.
are not going to worried about, okay, how your door is going to appear or how your door is going to be interacting with the bedroom. They are not worried about the details. They are simply worried about, okay, if you are constructing this house in this property, okay, are you compliant with the city guidelines? They want to make sure that you are not breaking any sort of
Yep.
city rules, right? So they design this on the piece of paper. That probably would be your business architecture. When you get into more of the, let's say you design a model house in case of house, probably you don't need to design the model house. But let's say if you're constructing an airport or a bridge or a bigger, construction
Yep.
property, then you need
Yep.
to design a model, some sort of model. Again, that's not the real technology that you are probably building. It's probably going to be some sort of model that you're designing. So that is probably going to give you a little bit of enterprise architecture perspective. I don't know if this is a close example, but this is the closest that I can probably get.
No, that's good, because it's more of the technical details behind the business art that support the business architecture. So
Yep.
good. So when you look at this and you go, okay, what are some of the things that really mess with your business and your enterprise architecture as it relates to the ERPs?
So the biggest problem with any software is the issue of invisibility. You don't really see anything. Okay, in case of business. In case of when you are building the house, if you are not building a wall appropriately, you are going to see that.
Yep.
Okay, if you have plumbing problem, your plumber is going to complain, because plumber is probably going to be certified by the city that you are not supposed to be doing something that is not going to be compliant with the city guidelines. Otherwise, you are going to kill people.
Yep.
In case of electrician, they are probably going to be certified. They are going to go through the courses before they can touch your electricity. In case of software, number one, you don't see it. Number two, you don't know how bad your plumbing is, to be honest. And sometimes you are simply creating this patch because there is going to be a disconnect between your technical team and the business team, and because of that, it's going to be all over the place. The architecture is going to be all over the place. For example, let's say if you talk about ERP, sometimes on top of ERP you are writing 800 different reports. Now, do you need those 800 reports? You have 4 different IT guys in your organization. The only thing they are doing is writing these reports. Maybe you can replace that ERP, and the ERP system is probably going to come with those 800 reports.
Yeah.
So when you take a very tool-focused approach, very technology-focused approach, hey, I'm looking for this one, can you solve this problem? They are going to solve this problem without actually thinking about your business architecture, without actually thinking about, okay, how your house is going to sort of interact with all of this data. So let's say in this particular case, your sales is asking for a report. They are typically the consumer of the information, right? And typically, if sales is going to ask, that report is going to be produced right away. So if they are asking for this report, it's going to reside, let's say, in the ERP system, and sometimes it might take days or months worth of effort in designing that report, and you are going to be spending so much time. But what you could do is you can think about, okay, which are my components, what are the data set that I'm actually expecting from different systems, and which is the system that is going to be responsible for this specific report, as opposed to putting everything in ERP or e-commerce or whichever system. It doesn't matter which system you are building, but you need to clarify the roles and responsibility the way you would in your organization.
Yeah. And I think you're right. It's unclear roles is in clarifying those roles and what the systems are going to do is a big part of that. So when you're called upon, what are some of the interesting things that you've had to solve with the ERP system? Just what's one that just goes, oh man, I never thought I would be able to have to do this.
It's always fun, okay? And the kind of things that we see, and I'm going back to my broken plumbing example or broken foundation example. It's so much fun. Okay, let me give you the example of the recent engagement. So in this particular engagement that we have, They have 3 or 4 different entities. They are 80% distribution, 20% manufacturing. Number one, the ERP system that they have is not necessarily designed for distribution. They don't even understand how the supply chain planning works for distribution, to be honest. So they installed a manufacturing system. Now they cannot replace, because this is PE owned and PE has the liquidity event. So now they somehow have to live with that. Now they keep acquiring the companies all the time. Now when they are acquiring, so they are sort of going in the reverse direction. Okay, so right now their finance team does not use ERP. Okay, they are paying a lot of money for the ERP. Okay, their finance team does not use ERP, so they are always relying on their IT to provide the information. Again, going back to my report example, this hell of report in a company is always the biggest time sucker, biggest money sucker. So my finance is not using, who's supposed to be driving the ERP initiative, by the way. Okay, my sales is not using the ERP system. Can you believe this? Okay, so sales is not using the procurement, does not know how to use the system. The only consumer we have for the ERP system is IT. Okay, is that really a ERP system then? The adoption rate in this engagement is less than 20%. They are paying 100% for the license. They have 7 people in the IT department right now. The only thing they do is EDI mapping back and forth, and they do report day in, day out. That's their job. Now they have 15 different software. Anytime procurement has a problem, they are being prospected by a startup, and they are trying to sell the procurement tool. A tool may be able to do very small things. Now, this tool is not going to integrate with your ERP. Okay, so they have like 15 to 16 different tools. And right now, Damon, from the business perspective, it's crazy because they don't have centralized visibility of the inventory. Okay, and there are some funny instances where, let's say, if a sales guy is holding the inventory for a customer, and the other salesperson is actually trying to sell the same inventory which is already sold.
Oh wow!
There is no centralized allocation, because once you actually grow, let's say, $10 million, $20 million, $30, $40 million. If you are, one guy run company, 4 people maybe, then you don't have as much problem. But let's say if you go after 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, you definitely have to have that centralized control of the inventory, because there are going to be real issues.
Oh yeah. I mean, when we used to run multiple facilities in the companies I managed, I mean, that inventory out of raw materials or a finished product, it's critical, because you don't, if you can't ship out of one location, you ship out of another. If you need raw materials, there's going to be times when you need to share them.
Yeah.
Not having access to that is like running with, it's like, I don't know, trying to play a handball without a hand. Almost, it's just, it's going to be very difficult. Wow. That's an interesting situation for sure. And but it's also, I mean, I think when people look at ERP systems in general, they don't understand the cost that if it's done wrong, or if you don't take the time to plan and implement like you should, because it's one of those things. It's like death by 1,000 cuts, because it just is here, there, and everywhere. And like you said, sometimes and I look at reports. I've always been, a minimalist when it comes to running business. And I always look at, why do we run 800 reports? Because how many of them get run and emailed to somebody, or God forbid, printed out and delivered to someone that never really do anything other than, oh, that's nice. And that's it. I mean, because really, how many reports do you think in a business do that? Oh, that's nice. And even if it wasn't nice, because this is even worse. Oh, that's not so good. They put the report down, same thing, and it didn't cause any action one way or the other. It's just wasted effort.
Yeah.
It's a wasted effort. And it goes unchecked, because, it's automatic. It goes by email, blah, 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 blah. But every bit of that has a cost. It has a cost in the time for the person to read it. It's got a cost in the time to maintain it. And all these things just add up so much. And when I look at these ERP systems, especially in big organizations, there have to be, from an operational standpoint, there have to be tremendous amounts of money available if you do this right, even in an existing situation where you're going to go in and optimize. Now, do you get called into those situations where you optimize a lot, or just because it's not working well, or is that just like No, because people don't even think about that.
No, those are the most common situations. They are going to have a business problem, and that's why they are inviting us, to be honest. And that might result into the net new opportunity as well. But those are the most common situations where either they have a lot of expenses, or they are not able to really do their inventory, or they are running into the inventory allocation is typically always the biggest issue. Then we run into a lot of waste. Then their bombs are not really optimized. They sort of know that, the way their bombs are structured, it's just it's really not working. They kind of know in their hearts that the way their manufacturing process is, system is doing something else. They don't even understand how the physical process and the system processes are. So we get called into those. Sometimes we get called when these companies decided to do the ERP implementation by themselves, and then they spent roughly 6 months. They spent $1 million, and then they are asking us, okay, can you align the business architecture, because I sort of know what these guys are working on, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get anything out of it. And when we look at the development plan, the customization plan, and I'm talking about the recent engagement, they have 230 line items there for the customization. Damon, I'm going to give you an example, and I'm not here to frighten anybody, to be honest. There was a distributor that we were working with. It was roughly $40-50 million company, and they had roughly 80 customizations. Okay, just 80 stories. And what they did is they actually tried to just UI changes. Okay, what they wanted to do is they felt that the newer ERP system that they bought, it was not friendly enough for them to be able to use. So they wanted to do 80 customizations. Now, when they actually decided to implement these stories, they just didn't know what they were getting into. Okay, they tried to do this for roughly 2 years, 3 years. The project never went live. They kept funding money, and finally the business ran out of business because they were spending a lot of time in doing the IT work when they should be selling. So in this particular case, they are talking about 80 different stories. Now, I'm actually involved in a new engagement as of today. Okay, they have 230 different line items. They bought, and again, this is not a jab on any vendor. They bought Microsoft Nav, and Microsoft Nav has its own positioning in the market, what it is supposed to be doing. Now, when you look at businesses like winery or brewery, they have a very different way of the way these businesses work. They have different way of doing the contracts. They have different regulations. The state regulations are going to be different. The way they carry their inventory is different. The way they do their accounting. Now, if a ERP guy is going to say, you know what, I'm a software guy. I can design any software out in the world. I can solve any business problem. Sure, you can. But what is going to be the cost of that?
That's for sure.
Here, they have been in this implementation for more than 6 to 8 months, and now they are asking us, and I'm like, guys, I would rather not get involved in this engagement. But then they want our help, so obviously we need to help.
But it's a great example of you really. I think it comes back again to the selection process, right? Because and that's why I kind of wanted to go through the steps that we did, talking about selection, implementation, integration, and upgrading, because most people have no idea how much a customization will cost you over the life of an ERP system, or selecting a system that just doesn't have some of the fundamental things that you need. It's just one of these things that just will plague you and plague you and plague you. So the one thing that I will say that you help to explain very well is take your time to set up a business blueprint, and correct me if I'm wrong, and make sure your blueprint is good. And then take your time really understanding what that system, as you're evaluating systems, making sure it's going to do as much as it can without any customization.
Exactly.
I mean, those two things alone seem like that was the big, because a lot of the stuff we're talking about is after the fact that they get to deal with, because the system wasn't selected, or, wasn't defined what they really needed, wasn't implemented, they didn't select the right one. So great stuff, man. Great stuff. We could go on for a long time, and this is about the time when we wrap this thing up. But Sam, ElevatIQ, love the discussion about manufacturing ERP systems implementations, challenges, solving implementation and system challenges. I made the title too long, but the information was incredible, dude. I just your experience, the way that you explain this stuff is so great, because I hope that we've been able to give people some information that they go, okay, maybe I should rethink this a little bit before I go in and go ahead and do something. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, Sam, what's the best way of getting a hold of you?
Yeah, it's going to be really easy. My name is super easy, Sam Gupta. It's SAMGUPTA. Super active on LinkedIn. ElevatIQ is the name of the business. It's ElevatIQ.com. And my email address is going to be sam.gupta@elevatiq.com. They can find me on LinkedIn. Sam Gupta ElevatIQ or Sam Gupta WBSRocks.
Very good. Very good. And if someone wants to see the entire, if you got in late on the live, you want to see the whole thing, go ahead. It's on my profile. Matt Goosey's here saying, nice job. Thanks a lot, Matt, coming to us from Wisconsin. Big Packers fan. Love to see you. Good stuff. Well, Sam, thanks so much for being here on the Faces of Business today. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Matt. Everyone else that's listening out there didn't comment in, but we love you listening. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks a lot, Sam.
Thank you so much, Damon. Really enjoyed talking to you.
You bet.